Good evening and welcome to St. Ignatius Parish. Tonight we are honored to welcome Patrick St. Jean to discuss his new book, The Spiritual Work of Racial Justice. Patrick is currently teaching at Creighton University, where he is in the psychology department. He's a psychotherapist and a regent, a Jesuit, obviously. Patrick has studied in France, in Mexico, and in Chicago, and he is a good friend of mine. So we are very happy to welcome him here to St. Ignatius. And there will be questions and answers afterwards. For those of you at home, if you have questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat, and Patrick will get to them after the talk. So thank you for joining us, and welcome, Patrick.
That was a long introduction for a short man, but I don't know how much I pay you, Lisa, but thank you very, very much. You glorify me. Thank you. I hope this works, and then those home will be able to see me and then hear me. Yes, is that okay, right? Can you hear me? You can see that on the chat. Once again, I thank you very much, Lisa, and I want to say thank you to my Jesuit brothers who are here, and my friend Enoch, CY, and Ramon. And thank you very, very much, Maureen, for making this journey. You walk all the way from St. Agnes. I know it took you 5 days to make it here. I really appreciate that. Once again, I think in Ignatius of Loyola, really insisted on that. Part of our spirituality as a Jesuit is based on gratitude. In fact, Ignatius said one of the root of all sin is ingratitude. In this context, I think I would be against a double sinner if opportunity to say thank you to all of you home, to take your time to be here with us tonight, to come, pray, converse, reflect, and work together. Also, I believe that tonight, this experience will be more as a spiritual pilgrimage to come and then be with us here in this place of trust, love, and care in St. Ignatius in San Francisco. The experience also that we're going to engage in tonight is spiritual pilgrimage for healing. These challenges also like we get to engage in these conversations that for many times we try to just skip and dodge, which is inherently become part of believe how we engage work of justice is also okay. And how we choose to engage with Christ. There can be no faith that can live outside of justice. And mainly for this year, when we are celebrating the 500th anniversary of the conversion of Ignatius of Loyola, and for us in the country, about like 400 years plus, since we've been like struggling with this issue of how we come in this country as people, as neighbor, as a nation, and also the experience of being human. That's what I would like to invite you to be here with me tonight, but mainly for this experience of conversions. I think Lisa already said that early on. I did not pay her, so you know the way she just introduced me, say everything. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning in 1719 when my parents arrived here on this piece of land. They got to this country in Pensacola, Florida. About 6 months in Pensacola, they were asked to walk to Louisiana. They spent like 3 to 4 months in this journey. They made it to Louisiana. By 1723, they got baptized in the Catholic Church. Then, from there, they get moved around from St. Louis, Missouri, down to Maryland, coming back again to Louisiana. Those people who from Senegambia, which is today part of Senegal and Ghana, in the old day, they get to reach this piece of land in America. By 1746, my parents got brought again to a new owner down in Louisiana. By 1761, they moved up to New Jersey, but with a new owner, is a Polish family who back then, around the 1780s, become Southern Baptist. My grandfather learned to read and write on the plantations in New Jersey. By early on, the 1800s, those families, they were nurses and keep working and in preaching. Around 1876, they moved to Haiti. Fast forward, about 100 years later, I was born in Haiti. That's how today, later on, leave Haiti, move away, and then come here in this country for graduate school. But there is some things I experienced in America that increase my prayer, make me again experience Christ in a different ways, but also raise these questions for me. This aspect of how I come to remember and even come to know that I'm a black man. Just the context in which we come tonight to get to know. The experience of skin color come to be a way we engage with each other in America. In a way we make people to remember what is their identity and their essence as human based on the color of their skin. Not only I become to know that I was a black man, but also I get to remember that you're not from here. Go back where you belong. In fact, I had to challenge to leave this experience out of you're welcome, but you're not belong. As we sing again and again in Catholic Church, I think this is one of the hymns, most of us, we always like to sing, all are welcome. Oh, maybe some of you might be able to sing with me home, right? All are welcome, all are welcome. That's the thing that we've been saying again and again and again. But the questions those people of color among us keep asking, how am I belongs here? This is what we come to struggle. This is what is the experience today. Skin color has divided us. In fact, people of color become another country as long as the white people and others become another country. Where do you belong? You seem to belong to your skin. And while we have even forgotten how Christ has created each one of us and his image and his likeness. This year, there is where everything has started. These questions of skin color. This is where Ignatius of Loyola call us, invite us to engage in these conversations around who we are and who Christ wants us to be and who we ought to be. How do we come to this? My work around all of these is focusing in conversations, conversions, and transformations. First, the point of conversations, even though it might be very, very challenging, it's not really like good to feel. In fact, Malcolm X often say that, sometimes you have to get out of from the sweet talk. We have to start the conversations. As here in St. Ignatius in San Francisco, many of you here and back home have begun this conversation already. Now, in fact, some of you already on the action item, which is good. That's when you already begin my work for me. You point to more power to you. But we need to come to this aspect here. What do we say and how do we pay attention to listen? Ignatius is very, very clear. When we talk about like experience of conversation in Ignatian spirituality, it's more about the listening. I sit to listen. This is where finally we can have this aspect to pay attention and be aware of what is God is want to say to each one of us. Racial spiritual awareness. We need to pay attention to those in the margin. Pay attention to those we always being singing, all are welcome. However, in our attitude, our way of engaging and being together, our actions and behavior have been saying otherwise. That's where the experience of conversations it's happened. Is these invitations and this Ignatian's way to listen and pay attention to the movement. Where is God want to lead us in these conversations? In May 1521, Ignatius, I imagine Ignatius just wake up having his breakfast and everything, and then the French was coming in. The commander-in-chief of the army said, no, don't go there because those French, they were like very, very, their numbers gonna surpassing us, almost double of us. We cannot, we have to surrender. Ignatius insisted, he wanted to go and then fight them. The commander said no, he said yes. In fact, Ignatius, it's been reported, according to the histories, Ignatius went to fight the French against his commander's will. Among the fight, many of the Spanish soldiers got killed. Some of them surrendered. Ignatius received a bullet and it just crashed down. The French came, picked him. In fact, he even reported that Ribedeneha, one of the Ignatius, in fact, he was the novice of Ignatius, who wrote the Ignatius bibliography, said Ignatius reported that the French treated him with kindness and gentleness. They carried him home. This journey, according to John O'Malley, would take him about a year for the healing. That led him to Manresa, the place where finally Ignatius happened to meet Christ by his own many visions that he had, but one of the main one in this part of the journey was his vision with St. Peter that came to change him. Mainly, Ignatius was invited to go deeply inside, allow himself to be converted from all his dream, all these men who was like, his way, fame was about women, money, and then have big victories in battle. Ignatius ended up having this deep conversation with Christ. Go deeply inside himself, listen, as we said, pay attention to listen what God's gonna say, then going out. This is where we come on the second part of for tonight's conversions. An Ignatian's family, this way of converting himself through the experience is to have this whole context. Internal, sit here, pay attention, but use it as a launch pad to go outward, to respond to his vocations. This journey, how he brings us here, how do we get here? This is where it's come to the invitations today. You and I, how we have received this call to come, slow down, go deep inside of us, and pay attention. Like James Baldwin said, the problem that we are in is deeper than we thought, because the problem is in us. End quote. This is where we are, all of us, we come to be called to go in and sit inside here, pay attention, and allow God to experience his ways with us. Then use this as a launch pad to go out. That's how Ignatius ended up founded the Society of Jesus in 1540, officially on paper. And that's how Ignatius ended up using the society as a launch pad to go out to convert other people. And this is where also Ignatius invite us. We in America today and around the world, we can use this experience to meet Christ and see what is God want for me and where God want to lead me. This is where it's come very, very important to have an examen. The examen is very, very important for healing. After this, that's where we can begin having these conversations about transformations. That's when we can finally begin having this conversation about reconciliation. In fact, when it's including in the Catholic Church, by the way, when it's become to the questions of racial healing, Sometimes some of us might say that it seems like Catholic Church is suffering with a reconciliation gap. That's what I call reconciliation gap. The questions of race is so sensitive, so fragile today. Each time you go to your pastor, to your bishops, anyone you talk about, oh no, you know why Paul talk about reconciliation? We have to love, we have to reconcile. And kumbaya, peace out, see you next door. This is what we are suffering right now in our church, in the Ignatian family. Is a reconciliation gap, a love gap. No one wants to go in and begin these conversations, which is about listening. And no one wants to go internally, which is about the conversions. You can try it out wherever you are. Try it with your people. Whenever you want to talk about race, the first thing is reconciliation and love. And then we are good to go. Next. Is that all about it? This is our mission? This is what happening here. The big second part also we're going to see here tonight, it's about this big crisis that we are in, which is a crisis of spiritual imaginations. Each time it's become to talk about the questions of race. Everyone gonna just go run away and hey, I don't know about that. Means like I've been here, I'm just like, my parents never talk about this. What am I gonna do? This is not some things I know. Means when I went to school with this black guy, with this Latino guy, where everybody was fine. Means we never talk about that. Why now? Why all the time it have to be about race? Why race have to be with that? Just come to church. Let's go. This is this crisis of imaginations when it's come to questions of race. We cannot talk about healing if we are not praying for the grace of imaginations. When I talk about imagination in my work, is this sense of spiritual imagination to pray, to ask for the grace to see ourselves in otherwise than the way we are now. And to see ourselves in a different way, how we can convert it and then transform, be different, because that's what God has given us the vocations to be. A different people for a different land, so that we can build the kingdom of God and everything we do and who we are. Because without that, we cannot talk about healing. Healing, it's about knowing. And when we know, that also gives us power. And once we have power, of course, that means we have to be responsible and be held accountable. And again, this is where no one wants to get there. In fact, sometimes I have this sense that we reach a point in our life in the church, in the Ignatian family, where we are operating out of this like selective knowing. We choose what we want to know so that we don't have to be accountable, or we choose to not know, period. Again, so I go back again to James Baldwin. James Baldwin even say that, sometimes we in America, we deliberately choose to not know, because if people know that we know, we're going to have to pay back. This is this crisis again, the second crisis we are facing in our church. Selective knowledge. As if knowledge is something that we can have control over. However, I'm even wondering, by not knowing sometimes, I'm even wondering if this is not a sin. Because one of the seven gifts, is the gift of knowledge. God's give us knowledge so that we can be the agent of grace and love to serve Him. Once we choose to know what we want to know, or we choose to not know, I'm wondering here, what is happening? This is where we come today in these conversations. Means I would say, like here in this community, since we are moving through action item, I think it would be very, very good. One of the action item I would say is like to engage against and responded to the gift that we have received from Christ, which is to know. Because the best way we can engage in this work is through knowledge. And Catholic Ignatian family, people in St. Ignatius, people around the world, I don't know. I think we have to come to the understanding that we have to pray to be the consumer of critical knowledge when it's become to the questions of grace. We cannot choose just what we want to know. Because sometimes I even say that, America is like a never land. Everyone wants to go in and stay on the surface. No one wants to look at it squarely on the face. I rather feel comfortable, at ease on my innocence. Because if I'm innocent, that's fine. But the questions I have for you tonight, how can you create your own comfort in the face of injustice? Can you really be innocent when people are dying, people are starving? Can you be innocent on the border that we have created around skin color? When skin color has become somehow a destination, a place where people just go. One skin color, another skin color. I believe that tonight we have to engage praying. One of the action items is to pray for the grace so that we can build this bridge that we can create it to cross from one way to another where all of us can come together. We have made the 1865, 55, we go all the way to the 60s when we remember 1991, 1999, 2011, 12, 13, 2019, 2020. We all were there. But where was God? What did happen in this whole movement? When did we ever invite God in these conversations? Can we really have healing and reconciliations with our God? Or how many times we're going to keep going through this comfort that we want to create around this love gap, reconciliation gap that we have created just to live on our comfort and remain perpetually innocent in the face of injustice, there can be no faith that strongly live outside of justice. And in fact, Paul said that, and also Augustine said that. I think tonight we come to these conversations. America is in labor. America is in labor. We all need to be here to give birth to this new baby. In 2007, I went to Haiti. I went to visit one of my friends that I usually go in and just go in the village in the northwest of Haiti. And then I went to the village. My friend was there, and one day we just wake up in the morning. After she get her coffee, and then I get my hot water. Many people keep asking me how much I like. Yes, I know that many of you are gonna ask. I like hot water. No more questions. TMI. And we go out for a walk. While we were in the village, and then I saw about 8 women coming in, racing, calling my friend, hey, come here, we need you now. I said, what's going on? You can imagine, okay? In Haiti, if you are like here in America, when you see like 8 people coming up to you, of course, you have to watch out. Something's going on, right? But in Haiti, this is fine. This is fine. This is perfectly fine. And myself, I was quite like, I was in my own lane, but somehow this foreigner said to my friend, what's going on here? People are coming. She said, this is fine. I said, I don't know about that. Are you sure? They said, come. We need you now. A woman is about to give birth. Come with us. And effectively, my friend said, you have to come with me. I said, what? Me? He said, a woman is about to give birth. You want me to go there? Are you sure? I said, yes, I feel embarrassed. I begin like blushing like that. I was kind of like, okay. I have 1,000 thoughts came to my mind. What should I do? Should I run or should I stay or should I go? And she grabbed me, and before you know it, I realized that I was running with the other 8 women, 10 of us running. We made it to the house, and effectively they go boom, boom, boom. They get in. My friend said, hey, Patrick, come. I said, me? You want me to get in? And the woman who is like giving birth, she insisted. She came out and grabbed me again, put me. And then I tried to close my eyes. Don't ask me what's happened, okay? I don't know. We all stand up on a circle together. And then she was doing her skits, whatever, with the women. And then she said, kneel. All 8 of us, we knelt. Then she asked us, just go with the same rhythm together. Just breathe. And we all go together. Breathe. And she insisted, go deeper and faster. If not, the life of this baby and the mother will be on your head. Because she said, if we don't do that, the life of the baby and the mother will be on our head. We all go together, even deeper and longer. Breathe. Around 3 to 4 minutes within breathing, and I heard this noise. Meow, meow, meow. There is this wonderful baby boy that just came out. And the mother, even though she was in labor and pain, a big smile come on her face. Today, this is what we are going through in America. The questions of race and racism is also a question of life. Race is a pro-life issue. America is in labor. It's about to give birth. She needs all of us to come as one nation, one people. We need to create this bridge over skin color. Not only singing all are welcome, but also all are welcome and belong. In the same circle together, hand in hand. And we breathe together to give birth to this new baby. This baby needs all of us. This is the stand of unity. As we keep saying, one nation's under God, this is the moment right now to convert. The conversion that Ignatius of Loyola is invited us is to experience this in one circle together, hand in hand, and we breathe together. Many times in the past, America has tried many times to give birth to this new baby. The sin of oppressions, redlining, segregations, injustice has pressed his knee on the neck of this baby. And he gets died, sniffed, even before he was alive. Today, as people who are all in this family with Ignatius, who recognize that we all love sinners, we are not coming here for what we have done, but for how God's called us to be one nation and one people. We all come to engage in this spiritual imagination, reimagination, to see ourselves otherwise and remember our country differently and experience these spiritual imaginations to be a different people, to help America give birth and learn to breathe together as one people. There is where it's come, and we all truly believe in God. We turn again and again and again. We are not going to let a race create this border, this wall between us, but rather create this bridge to connect us. Our actions is to come together and to believe in hope. To believe in people of hope. What is lying in front of us is way bigger than what we have heard or we have learned that can define us. Yet we need to learn. We need to know. And we need to remember, we are people of hope. We are people who will not succumb to give way on the innocence that we have learned to comfort ourselves with. We are people also who know that we are not being here to adjust ourselves with the sense of innocence, with the sense of injustice, but rather we come to say, yet God can teach us how we come together at this circle and hope. Hope is invented every day. As long as the sun comes down, we have hope and we believe that we will be there and we will get there. Our obligations as people, as family, is to imagine ourselves otherwise and believe that Christ is with us. And race is more than what has been constructed by institutions. We are called to build bridge, and we are called to create a family, and we are called to be together in this process of conversions and healing, all for the greater glory of God. Thank you.
Patrick has agreed to answer some questions. I'm looking at his close friends who may have particular questions they want to ask him. But any of you at home who have questions, please enter them in the chat box. We've put a couple of reflection questions. First of all, I should have said thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm very grateful. So for those of you here who probably aren't seeing the chat, there were a couple. So the first question was, we invite you all to reflect and share on where you feel God is leading you in the conversation around race and identity. And then another specific question, is there knowledge about racism, systemic and otherwise, that I am avoiding? Why might that be? And how can we bring that to God for healing? So those are some questions to reflect on. And then if there are specific questions for Patrick, again, in the chat box, or I will hand the microphone over.
Okay, Patrick, thank you for wonderful talk and the wonderful work. As a fellow Jesuit, I just feel really proud of you, like having this wonderful work that contributing to such a important conversation that need to happen in our Catholic Church in the United States. And my question, since the topic is about Ignatian, drawing on the insights of Ignatian spirituality, and my question is,
CY, can you put out the mask? Because
oh,
I
okay.
think it's
So
there.
it's since we're talking about Ignatian spirituality, how that can contribute to the conversation on race and anti-racism efforts. So my question is to do with that. Like, there's a very important practice in Ignatian spirituality about discernment, right? So we talk about how to use the tools that Ignatius have given us about consolation and desolation. And a lot of people who are living in this country, living in the reality of racial injustice, or have the commitment to the work of, fighting the racial injustice, they often express the emotion, the experience of feeling angry, right? Anger. And I wonder you have some insights you might share that how the anger is playing out in our spiritual life in relations to the Ignatian insights about consolation and desolation. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, CY. That's a fellow Jesuit, right? They always have difficult questions. Oftentimes, whenever I go somewhere, I give a talk, I said, I wish like there are no Jesuit, but I cannot avoid them. I'm just kidding. Thank you very, very much, CY. Even St. Thomas Aquinas, actually, he talked in this aspect of anger, was very, very clear on that. Anger is the will anger is the will that drives the spirit to justice. Now this is where again Ignatius take what Aquinas said. Now he invite them to discernment. What type of anger is that? We know that anger is the will that drives the love to justice, but the type of anger. This is where the first element in my work is about conversations. Oftentimes, Ignatian spirituality, again, I'm biased, but I think many of you around the world are saying it here. And today, reality, Ignatian spirituality is one of the best tools for these conversations. One of the best tools for this conversation, because where he invited us mainly is to pay attention. Pay attention to really like follow the interior movement. Where is this anger come from? What is the origin of it, the roots, and what is the destinations of this anger? Where is it leading me? As Aquinas say that, but Aquinas did not define specifically this type of anger. And again, I go back again and again in James Baldwin, right? He's my uncle, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. No, he's a cousin of my mother. No, it's not true. James Baldwin even talk about this anger, right? When we know that when this John Lewis, who was like one of the director of SNCC in 63 to 66, and between also the Black Panthers and all, that's where the whole like country was trying to divide those two movements. Baldwin said, you know what, you have to be able to pay attention to this type of anger that's moving between those two movements. Even James Baldwin invite us on this question of, again, discernment and examine. We have to sit down, pay attention. Where is that come from and where is it leading me? And mainly, who is the author of this within me? We have to know where is that leading. The whole turn have to be around and around, but that always have to go back to God. Because we are not who we are. We are not doing anything that we are doing without God. And the roots of this anger also should not just be kind of like an anger to feed my narcissistic. This is where, again, Ignatian's conversions, the second point together, just on your question, CY, became very, very important. Go back, take all of the reality, sit down, lay down in Manuresa, discerning and praying and pay attention. Be aware. Awareness, important here, to tracking this type of anger. And see what is God is saying here. We have done many, many things. I've said that again and again and again, including when the slaves, they were like in the plantations in the 1800s. They tried many, many times, including the Haitian independence. But where was God? When did we ever invite God? I'm trying to be humble, right? This is what I say. By the way, this book, you have to buy one for yourself, buy one for your kids. It's the only book you will have here. It's not a book to read. It's a work to do. Okay? But in the book is very, very clear. I say that. Pay attention, awareness. And then finally, the way we can tracking this anger spiritually, because it has to be the spiritual work. This is a spiritual work. Is to slow down. Again, I said awareness, but not reacted to the moment. Ignatian spirituality is not about reactions. When it comes to the questions of anger, anger often tends to lead us to react to the present experience. And we oftentimes regret afterwards. That's not the good spirit. I don't know if that is the work of justice. Neither. You can say that, Patrick say that. I'm very humble. But I think reactions doesn't really, really lead to spiritual racial justice and healing. It's always a response, actions. This is where Ignatian spirituality comes very, very handy in this aspect. Awareness, reactions, and interior discernment. We have a question in the back.
Thank you, Patrick. Since I'm only a former Jesuit, it'll be half as challenging, the question. So my question to you, now from the other side, you were speaking on anger, which I think is very important. From the other side, as I think anyone who writes about racial justice in Catholic Church or outside is going to face a certain degree of anger or resistance, negativity, threats, what have you. And I know you've experienced those things a lot, especially now in online, it's very easy to do that. How do you find God in that? Because I would expect that to be a place of deep despair, even from fellow Jesuits. How do you deal with that anger, that pushback, that space? How do you find God in that negative space, that space of despair? Yeah, that would be my question.
Again, this is from another Jesuit, another former Jesuit. The questions are always very, very difficult. I often I want to run away. I wish I could right here. Myself personally, I think even right now, I would, today as I'm speaking right now, I would not spend a day. Maybe that's going to happen tomorrow. But as today, and this past couple of years, I would not spend a day at least to not receive a bad email from someone that I don't know and I think who even don't know me. In fact, I think we're in family here. I even can say that. Sometimes even from a Jesuit. Yes. How do I find God here? I think number one is to really rely on your community. You need support. You need people with you. Means I have many friends, including Enoch is one of my friends. Lisa, all of them here, by the way, close friends. And most of the time when those things happen, I reach out to a friend. You always need this because, in fact, this is why I said this book, you cannot just read it by yourself. You have to buy a copy for someone and always go out because many times in the book you will get angry. But you need to have community. My work in itself sometimes requires solitude. Sometimes I need to be alone. But my solitude also has been built and founded and upon my community. That's what gives me consolations. That's where I think this experience, oftentimes I call people just to vent. Just say, okay, there is what's happening here. Let's pray together. Just like Jesus Christ was with the disciples. Jesus Christ did not Jesus Christ has all power by himself. He could have done everything in his ministry by himself. But he wanted to leave us this example of community. As human, we will always need each other in this work of healing and justice. I think when it's come to this way, to this aspect, I reach out to someone and I pray. Prayer is your best therapeutical tools in this work. We need to pray. And God, at the end, is the one who will do the works. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, for that wonderful and inspiring talk. I guess I have two questions. First is, you said in your book that your book is not something to read, but it's something to do, that we have work to do. So my first question is, how can we be effective allies? How can we be effective allies in the fight against racism? Are there like concrete steps that, as an ally, that we could take? And second, you mentioned about Ignatian discernment or spirituality as an important tool to fight racism, and I think that's very good. I'm just wondering if, as followers of Jesus, as Catholics, are there tenets in the Catholic social teaching that would guide us or inspire us to work, to walk, or to accompany with others, or to fight racism? So first one is, how can we be allies against racism? And second, are there Catholic social teaching that teaches us or tells us that we should stand with the people in the margin, and how we can fight racism? Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Raymond, for these great questions against another brother Jesuit. All of them come here tonight to put me in trouble. I really appreciate that, brothers. We'll talk later. Let me begin by the second questions. I think in the Catechism, like 1849, it's very, very clear. It's talking about like neighbor. That's a very, very great ways we can engage in these conversations. Good neighbors, and then see really how we can come in and work together. Because again, it's not to create this border, as I point out initially in my talk, between like race. As today, race become a country in this country, skin color. But how we can create this bridge together, and again, it's based on the tenet of the catechisms of the Catholic Church. And Pope Francis again insisted on that. Many others insisted on that. This is the questions of life. And the church really, like, as a institution of love and care that's promote life, this is where it's challenged us to come together and this as good neighbors, and then also see each other as ourselves. Your first questions is about like how we can be an ally. Again, I'm coming back here on my first point is conversations. And conversations, again, begin first by listening instead of like talking. Especially in this work. We need to listen to our brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers, Latinos, Black, Brown. We need to pay attention to them, the indigenous, to listen to them. Then that's the only way, at the only place we can really know their needs. Oftentimes you see when you go to a conversation, you even the person even hasn't begun talking. We already have the answer for the person who is talking. Then we go out and we give ourselves the pat on the back. Okay, we just come back on the conversation of reconciliation and justice and kumbaya. Good to go. See you next door. And then those people who are oppressed leave the room without even having a chance to express the animosity, and the oppressions. I think in questions of racial justice, we have to pray for the grace of listening and how we can listen to each other and not talking at each other. I think that's where we really begin this conversation.
Patrick, I have a question for you. Thank you for your talk as well, and for your book, for writing the book, because I think it's really important. And obviously, you know, I work for the church too, so.
And you are the church.
Yeah, yes, exactly. We're all part of this church. And the church has a history of racism and a history of, you know, many things. It's a broken church we're all in right now. And how do you feel about the leadership of this church tackling this issue? I mean, I love the idea of using Ignatian spirituality to have it as a tool for combating racial discrimination, but I mean, how do we start within our own church walls and within the leadership of this world church, of this national church, especially in the United States? I think it's a big issue, you know, and I don't know if, you know, not all of them, even the church leaders are in depth with Ignatian spirituality so much. How do we use these tools with the bigger church, you know, to combat racial inequalities within the church? You know, you see it all the time. So I know that's another big question for you.
You know, you should never ever come and give a talk at a Jesuit church. They will always kill you with big questions and want to put you in trouble. Maureen, I don't know. But thank you very, very much. This is really a great question. I think, you know, today, our church just embracing this path. Sometimes, you even do, myself personally, I'm praying, you know, I keep asking myself, where is our call of baptisms of being like priests, queens, prophet, and priest? What we have done with that? Yes, this is a very, very big question. Again, so I keep repeating that again and again. We keep singing, all are welcome, night and days. Today, I don't know whether or not it's Catholic Church and many other churches. Where would you go in America? You don't see a big line, a big sign outside. All are welcome. How many are belong? I don't know. But performance also challenged us very well on this aspect. You know, the questions of joy. We do know that we cannot be joyful people if we want to remain as innocent people. Innocent is a crime in the face of injustice. We cannot be joyful people if we continue of turning our eyes blind on those questions that matter to us today. And performance is very, very clear about that. I think our leaders in the church, beginning from performances, they have responded. And that's where we're supposed to start. I would start by performances, what he said. I cannot hear you, Lisa. Okay, you want to use my microphone?
Okay, we have a question in the chat. This is from Crash24, okay? And the question is, how do you deal with those who have never had to deal with continual racism, but continue to make comments like, I know what you're going through? I'll repeat the question. How do you deal with those who have never had to deal with continual racism, but continue to make comments like, I know what you're going through?
Craft 22, thank you very much for your questions. But um, I don't know if I had to put my hat, as a clinician. Oftentimes, when people like in depression or anxiety, their parents, people over, oh no, I'm so sorry, I know what you're going through. But how do you know? Are you the one who is going through the depression? Again, this is number one, this is a microaggressions. We do not engage in this conversation that way. I don't really know that if we know. Most of the time when we're already, we tend to be allergic with knowledge. In fact, we don't want to know when it's become to the questions of racial justice. But I would, very kind, if I have energy, I would perhaps invite this person to clarify, what do you know? Or what do you mean by that you know? And what do you want to tell me by that? Perhaps the person might want to find a way, but they don't know the best way to reach out. But yes, thank you very, very much. It's a very, very great question, but I don't know if I have a very proper answer for you. It's very challenging. And most of the time people come, myself personally, that happened to me many, many, many times. I end up like leaving the room. I just go. Because you really don't know what I'm going through. If I have energy, that's my personal experience, I would engage in this conversation. Perhaps, give them a dose of mercy, a chance. Can you explain yourself? What do you mean by you know? Try to engage a little bit. Not always, though, because, again, this is very, very painful. Engage a little bit in this conversation here. But thank you very, very much. It's a very, very great questions.
Now, I have a question for you.
Oh, Lisa.
It will
Oh, my
not be
God.
difficult.
Now I'm scared.
I promise. We've talked a little bit about the importance of journaling in spiritual practice. I know that for a lot of people, that's not something that comes naturally. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the process of journaling and how it has helped you in the spiritual practice, and particularly how you use it in the book. A little bit.
Oh, yes. Again, thank you very, very much, Lisa. This is a great pedagogical questions. If you have the book, hopefully all of you have it. If you don't have it, you better get it now. Otherwise, all of you, no, I'm just kidding. Oh, Lisa said to me, to say to you, the book is available in the bookstore. You can come get your copy. How you can really like engage in these questions of journaling here? It's really, again, this is where we talk about like this discernment, interior discernment. You read it and you follow the movement, you pray for the grace and pay attention. And you journal, because St. Ignatius was very, very clear about that. Sometimes you will need, whenever you're in consolations, you need to register them, put them somewhere, because you will need them tomorrow when the moment of the desolations come. This is why the questions of journalism is very, very important to journal your grace that you've received on your prayers, so that you can always come back when you go back in the desolation time. Now you can use your journal. Oh, okay, there is when the moment X and Y happened, that's what happened. Because again, this book is a retreat. is really designed with the 4 weeks of the exercises, moment of which you're gonna go, for example, if you're all in the third week, you might get some deep desolations. You need to put them down because you're gonna need that. And then whenever if it's on the first week or the fourth week, if you get some peak of consolations, put them down because you will need them to go back forth to see. Secondly, you have your your historical spiritual consolation. That's how I call it. The very, very complicated name I gave it. That means you need to have this like sense of history to see how God is working with me and see the pattern and how you've been like going on this work. Because it's a work. And the racial anti-racist work is not one day, it's a lifelong work. But we need to be able to tracking it down and see where God has working with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you, my friend, for coming here and get your book. Go back to work. Thank you.